Hi everyone, hope you're all doing good. Welcome to this YouTube channel of Officers IAS Academy. I am Rangarajan, Associate Director at the Officers IAS Academy and IAS of the 2005 batch. This academy is run by Mr. Israel Jabbar Singh, IAS of the 2004 batch. Not just the two of us, we have two other senior officers, one Mr. Subramaniam, IRAS retired, who was a member of the Alag Committee for Civil Service Examination Reforms, who teaches ethics and science and technology at the academy, and Mr. Saravana Kumar, IRS of the 2004 batch, who is now full-time into teaching, and he teaches sociology and various other areas of economics and governance as well. So that was just a brief introduction about our academy. I teach polity, governance and anthropology at the academy. So while we are all very passionate about the classroom training and the brick and mortar coaching that we give to various aspirants at our academy, we also wanted to blend the online platform so that it benefits not just the students of our academy but for the aspirants at large, because this is an internet age and we need to be abreast, we need to reach out to the maximum aspirants even through the online platform, so that our expertise and our knowledge can be shared with people at large. And that is the initiative of this Officers YouTube channel, where we will regularly come up with lessons on important topics, mainly for the UPSC examination and even some other topics which are of relevance for aspiring civil servants. So now to come to this video, since I teach polity and it's very close to my heart, I'm just going to give you a short lecture, if you can say that that way, about how to read the bare act of the Constitution. Now for beginners, the bare act means the actual Constitution, the way it is written, not just the textbooks that you read from, but the basic bare act of the Constitution. So now, why is reading the bare act so important? It is important because while you will start reading the Constitution and get familiarized with it by reading books like Lakshmikant, by reading books like D.D. Basu or any other standard textbook which is available in the market, which will give you an initiation into the Constitution of India. Once you get the hang of the Constitution, once you get the basic understanding of the Constitution, it is very important that you read from the bare act while revising. And why is it important? As I again told you, while the concepts and the case laws and various other aspects about the interpretation of the Constitution and the various provisions of the Constitution are tested in your mains examination, as far as the preliminary examination of the UPSC is concerned, the Constitution questions are directly from the provisions of the Constitution. And for that, you need to be on top of the nuances, of the nitty-gritties of the Constitution, in order to ensure that you don't get confused while seeing the questions from the Constitution. And for those of you who are beginners, this is how the bare act of the Constitution looks. So this is just the Constitution of India in its basic form, as it is written, starting from Article 1 to Article 380 or 390, whatever it is. So it's available online. This is an internet age, as I told you. So it does have its disadvantages, right? During our preparation days, we did not have Facebook or Twitter or WhatsApp, where you can kill your entire day doing nothing. But of course, it just gives you a kind of a relaxation as well. So you need to use it judiciously for your benefit. And so the Constitution of India bare act is available online as well. You can Google it in the Law Ministry's website. It is available. And then you can download it and keep it in your smartphone or in your laptop, which you use while preparing for the examination. And to highlight my point as to why you should read from the bare act, let us take a simple example of election of president or election of the vice president of India. All of us know that India is a republic. It has an elected president. He is the top of the executive in this country. He is the number one citizen of this country. So if I give you a statement saying that the Electoral College, which elects the president, consists of all members of parliament and all members of state legislatures of the various states, of the 29 states and 2 union territories, Delhi and Pondicherry in this country. Now, if you read your standard textbook, you all know that the president is elected. That is why we are a republic. You all know that the parliamentarians and the state legislature members vote for election of the president. The presidential election is just a couple of months away. But if the question in the UPSC tells that the Electoral College consists of all members of the parliament and all members of the state legislatures, you may think that both the statements are correct. But in fact, both the statements are wrong. Why? Because the Electoral College, which elects the president, consists of only elected members of the parliament and elected members of legislative assemblies of the states. So there's a lot of difference between all members of parliament and elected members of the parliament, because the Lok Sabha has 2 Anglo-Indian members who are nominated. The Rajya Sabha has 12 members who are nominated by the president for excellence in art, social service, so on and so forth. But these 14 members of parliament do not vote in the presidential election. Similarly, it is only the elected members of legislative assembly of state who form the Electoral College for electing the president, which means the one Anglo-Indian member who is nominated to the legislative assembly, or none of the members of the legislative council. We do have dual structure legislatures in 7 of our states, where we have both the legislative assembly and the legislative council. States like Bihar, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Jammu and Kashmir, Uttar Pradesh. But none of the legislative council members vote in the presidential election. And so, the correct answer for the Electoral College of the president is elected members of parliament and elected members of legislative assembly of the state. And this is something which you will never forget, which you will never get confused if you actually read Article 54 of the Constitution directly from the Constitution. Right? Similarly, the Electoral College for the Vice President, on the other hand, consists of all members of parliament, which means even the nominated members of Lok Sabha, the 2 Anglo-Indian members, or the 12 nominated members of Rajya Sabha also vote for election of Vice President. And that is something again which you will never miss if you read Article 66, which deals with election of the Vice President. The same goes for removal. Everyone knows that President has to be impeached, and impeachment by 2/3 majority. Now, 2/3 majority, what 2/3 majority? Is it 2/3 of the members present and voting, or is it 2/3 of the total membership of the House? It is only for removal of President that the Constitution prescribes the most stringent majority possible. So it is not 2/3 of members present and voting, which is the case with removal of Supreme Court judge, which is the case with removal of election commissioner, which is the case with removal of a High Court judge. But for removing the president, the majority that is required is 2/3 of the total membership of the House in both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. And this is again something, when you read it directly from Article 61 of the Indian Constitution, you will never forget it. So that is the reason why you need to read the Constitution from the barrack. And as I told you, don't start by reading the Constitution directly from the barrack to begin with. I'm just telling the beginners, because you may get lost. You may think, oh, this is so difficult. How do I remember all this? So don't get stressed about it. Read your standard textbook, read your Lakshmikant, read your D.D. Basu once or twice to familiarize yourself with the provisions of the Constitution. But when you start revising the Constitution, at that time, have your barrack either in your soft copy form or in your textbook form. Have the Constitution by your side along with your textbook, and make notes while reading it, so that you are not missing out on any of these nuances or nitty-gritties. So I will just take, the Constitution is almost 300 articles plus, 350 articles plus, so it's not going to be possible to cover how to make notes for the entire Constitution in just this 15-18 minute lecture. But the idea is to give an idea. The idea is to give a way, an approach for making notes, which will help all aspirants to prepare such bullet points or notes from the barrack of the Constitution, so that you don't miss out on the nitty-gritties. I'll just take a simple example. I am taking an example which even a person who is not familiar with the Constitution will be aware of. For example, President, Vice President, everyone, any person who is studying in a college or who is working will know about President and Vice President. That's why I took that example. Similarly, I will take the example of Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers provisions in the Constitution start from Article 74 and go up to Article 78. Right? It is part of Part 5 of the Constitution, which deals with union. It is under the chapter called Union Executive, and there are some 4-5 articles which cover the provisions with respect to the Council of Ministers. So, when you take that section, you have already read it in your textbook, but you have the Constitution Bare Act also by your side. You are now going to make notes in bullet points for Council of Ministers, so that you cover all, you exhaust all the possible points that can be asked in a question in the UPSC preliminary examination. Because remember, a wrong statement can be anything, right? But the right statement can only be from the Constitution of India. So the idea when you make the notes is to ensure that you are thorough with all the right statements with a particular topic in the Constitution, so that it will be very easy for you to pick which is the right one, and anything which is not the right one is automatically a wrong statement. So coming back to the example of Council of Ministers, you create a heading called Council of Ministers and start jotting down these bullet points one after the other, and this will exhaust all the provisions in the Constitution with respect to the Council of Ministers, so that any statement which comes from this is right, is true, and any statement which is outside this is incorrect or false. And that is how the UPSC tests you in the preliminary examination. So let's take the example of Council of Ministers. So the first bullet point is that there will be a Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister as the head. So unlike in England, in India, the Constitution itself specifically says that the Prime Minister is the head of the Council of Ministers. The second point, the Prime Minister is appointed by the President of India. Third point, the ministers in the Council of Ministers are again appointed only by the President of India, but on the advice of the Prime Minister. So, Prime Minister appointed by the President. All other ministers again as per the Constitution are formally appointed only by the President, but on the advice of the Prime Minister. Having said that, as per the Constitution, the ministers hold their office during the pleasure of the President. That is again a fourth bullet point, right? The question can say the ministers hold office during the pleasure of the Prime Minister. That is an incorrect statement as far as the Constitution is concerned. Of course, it is the prerogative of the Prime Minister to remove someone from his cabinet and appoint someone else. But the appointment or the removal, the order is taken out in the name of the President. So that is the fourth bullet point. The fifth bullet point, or the fifth point which you note down, the strength of the Council of Ministers cannot exceed 15% of the total membership of House of People. Remember, it is not 15% of the total membership of the Parliament, because the Parliament includes the Rajya Sabha as well. The total maximum strength of the Council of Ministers cannot exceed 15% of the total membership of the House of People or the Lok Sabha. That is another point which you need to make down about the Council of Ministers. And then the Council of Ministers are again collectively responsible to the House of People, and that is why we are a parliamentary democracy, because the executive or the Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the House of People or the Lok Sabha. And then final bullet point, any minister who is not a member of either House of Parliament for a consecutive period of 6 months ceases to be a minister. So anyone can be appointed a minister, but he has to become a member of Parliament within a maximum period of 6 months, otherwise he ceases to be a minister. So these are the 7-8 bullet points. It may seem like repeating the Constitution in your notes, but please do that once. I just took a simple example which even a person who has not familiarized himself with the Constitution of India can relate to, because these are things which we read in our newspaper day in and day out. But having said that, in the preliminary examination of your UPSC exam or any State Public Service Commission exam for that matter, you are tested on the nitty-gritties or nuances of the Constitution, and for that the best way to revise it and ensure that you don't miss out on any of those points is to make bullet points or tables for each and every area of the Constitution, and I just exhausted the points which can possibly come under the Council of Ministers heading. And these are the points which are the correct statements as per the Constitution of India. And if anything is beyond this, then it's an incorrect statement, and you will be able to answer your question correctly whenever it comes, right? So that is one way of ensuring that entire Constitution, when you revise it with the Bare Act, you make bullet points in the form of notes, and the day before the examination, you just need to revise those bullet points to be sure that you are not getting confused about what is the majority, what is the Electoral College, 2/3 of what, and you will be very thorough with the provisions of the Constitution. So please do make bullet points for each of the areas, right? Starting from the states, then the union executive, union legislature, union judiciary, state executive, state legislature, state judiciary, public service commission, elections, right? Fundamental rights, directive principles. For each area, please start making bullet points, like the way I gave an example for the Council of Ministers. Please start making bullet points for those areas and exhaust all the possible points that can come up in the question paper from that area. And believe me, you will not be wanting in the examination hall. You will immediately be able to find out which is a correct statement and which is an incorrect statement. So apart from the bullet points, I always tell this for all my students in my classes, that apart from the bullet points, there are some areas of the Constitution which are best remembered through a table. For example, constitutional authorities. President is a constitutional authority, Vice President is a constitutional authority, the Supreme Court judge, the High Court judge, the Chief Election Commissioner, the Controller and Auditor General, the UPSC Chairman, the UPSC members, the Speaker of Lok Sabha, the Chairman, the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. All these people are constitutional authorities, which means what? They are appointed as per the provisions of the Constitution. They are removed as per the provisions of the Constitution. They have certain qualifications which are prescribed in the Constitution itself. There are some disqualifications which are again prescribed in the Constitution itself. So there are age limits. The tenure is specific for certain specific constitutional authorities. So the best way to remember some areas like constitutional authorities or fundamental rights, which right is applicable to whom, for these areas it is best remembered by preparing a simple table, so that you don't have to bother about going back to your textbook or to your bare act when you revise the Constitution just before the examination. All you need to do is sit and revise this table and you will not make any mistake. So I am just going to run through a simple example, again taking the example of the President, which we had just discussed. We will just go through how you prepare it into a table, and this is just an example as I told you, but when you go through the bare act of the Constitution, you can fill up this table for all the constitutional authorities, as I told you, the President, the Vice President, the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the Controller and Auditor General, Election Commissioners, Supreme Court Judge, High Court Judge, UPSC Chairman, UPSC members, Attorney General. All these are constitutional authorities for which you can just fill up this table and you will be able to remember it well. So now I will just show you an example as to how to prepare the table with the President as the example. So as I was telling you, I am just going to take the example of President, who is a constitutional authority, and I am going to take you through a table where it can be summarized, and you need to do the same thing for all other constitutional authorities, which will help you in remembering the provisions and the nuances very well, so that you don't make any mistake while confronted with various options in the examination. Right? So this is the table. I have broken it down into two parts considering the space constraint, but you can just create all the columns in a landscape manner in one sheet. So the headings could be something like this. You can add on depending on your comfort level. Who is the constitutional authority? What is the qualification prescribed in the Constitution for such a constitutional authority? What is the Electoral College? Is he appointed by the President or is he elected? What is the Electoral College which will elect that constitutional authority? What is the tenure for which the constitutional authority holds his office? What are the grounds on which the constitutional authority can be removed? What is the procedure for removal of the constitutional authority? And any other condition which you may want to make a note of for easy reference. Now let's take the example of the President of India. So the President is a constitutional authority, the highest constitutional authority in the country. What is the qualification prescribed for being a president of the country? You have three qualifications as per the Constitution. One, he must be a citizen of India. Obviously, any constitutional authority has to be a citizen of India. He must have completed at least 35 years of age, and he must be eligible for being a member of the House of People, which means any person who is disqualified from being elected to the Lok Sabha is automatically disqualified from becoming the President of India. So these are the qualifications which are prescribed in the Constitution for President of India. The election of the President, of course, he is an elected authority. He is not a nominated authority like the governor or like, let's say, the CAG or the Supreme Court judge or election commissioners. They are all people who are appointed by the President, but the President, Vice President, Speaker, all these constitutional authorities are elected by an Electoral College. So what is the Electoral College for election of the President? As I was telling you earlier, to highlight the nuances and the nitty-gritties of the provisions of the Constitution, the Electoral College for election of the President consists of elected members of Parliament and elected members of state legislative assemblies. So once you put it down into writing in this table, you will never forget what constitutes the Electoral College for election of the President. The tenure is 5 years unless he is removed or he resigns or unfortunately he passes away before the 5-year tenure. Then obviously a fresh election will be conducted, but otherwise the standard tenure for the President is 5 years. The grounds for removal as per the Constitution, there is only one ground which is stipulated in the Constitution, and that is violation of the Constitution. It's not defined in the Constitution, but that is the ground which is stipulated for grounds of removal of the President. And what is the procedure for removal? As I told you earlier, it is two-thirds of the total membership of each house of the Parliament. Remember, it is not two-thirds of members present and voting, but two-thirds of the total membership of each house of Parliament, which is the majority required for impeaching a President. So, any other condition for the President, well, it may not be applicable, but let's take the example of Controller and Auditor General. A CAG is not allowed to take up employment with either the Government of India or Government of any state after his retirement, and that is stipulated in the Constitution itself. The same rule is applicable for Chairman of the Union Public Service Commission. He cannot take up any employment with Government of India or Government of any state after his retirement. So those conditions, you can note it down in this last column so that you will not miss out on those as well with respect to the constitutional authorities. So to sum up again, for beginners, for people who are in the midst of preparation, whoever it may be, always read the Constitution from the bare act definitely and make notes before your examination, well before your examination, so that it helps you in revising. As I told you, there are two ways of making notes. One is bullet points for various areas, starting from fundamental rights to directive principles to union to states to election to judiciary. Prepare bullet points and exhaust all the possible points with respect to that area, and wherever a tabular content, a tabulation will help you understand and remember the points better, like for constitutional authorities or some areas in fundamental rights and all that. Prepare tables and fill it up by reading from the Constitution directly. Believe me, it will be worth the effort. You will not make any mistake in any of the questions of the Constitution in the examination if you are thorough in the manner in which I had suggested. I hope you found this course useful. We'll come up with more such useful courses in the Officers IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Good luck.